Description: Kemal Ataturk was a Turkish field marshal, revolutionary statesman, author, and the founding father of the Republic of Turkey, serving as its first president from 1923 until his death in 1938. Józef Clemens Pilsudski was a Polish statesman who served as the chief of state and first marshal of Poland. He was considered the de facto leader of the Second Polish Republic as the Minister of Military Affairs. Description: Paul Ludwig Hans Anton von Benekendorf und von Hindenburg, was a German general and statesman who led the Imperial German Army during World War I and later became President of Germany from 1925 until his death in 1934. John Joseph Pershing GCB, nicknamed Black Jack, was a senior United States Army officer. He served most famously as the commander of the American Expeditionary Forces on the Western Front in World War I, 1917–18. Erich Friedrich Wilhelm Ludendorff was a German general, politician and military theorist. He achieved fame during World War I for his central role in the German victories at Liege and Tannenberg in 1914. Herbert Kitchener was an Irish-born senior British Army officer and colonial administrator. Field Marshal Douglas Haig was a senior officer of the British Army. During the First World War, he commanded the British Expeditionary Force on the Western Front from late 1915 until the end of the war. Henri-Philippe Benoni Omer Pétain, generally known as Philippe Pétain, Marshal Pétain and sometimes the Old Marshal, was a French general officer who attained the position of Marshal of France at the end of World War I, during which he became known as the Lion of Verdun. Ismail Enver Pasha was an Ottoman military officer who formed one-third of the dictatorial triumvirate known as the Three Pashas, in the Ottoman Empire. Enver was an early member of the Committee of Union and Progress, a young Turk organization that agitated against Abdul Hamid II's absolute rule. Victor Emmanuel III reigned as King of Italy from 29 July 1900 until his abdication on 9 May 1946. In addition, he was Emperor of Ethiopia and King of the Albanians. During his reign of nearly 46 years, which began after the assassination of his father Umberto I, the Kingdom of Italy became involved in two world wars. Ferdinand Foch was a French general and military theorist who served as the supreme Allied commander during the First World War. Ahmed Jamal Pasha, also known as Cemal Pasha or as Jamal Basha as Safa in the Arab world, was an Ottoman military leader and one of the three pashas that ruled the Ottoman Empire during World War I and carried out the Armenian genocide. Jamal was born in Mytilene, Lesbos. Albert I reigned as King of the Belgians from 1909 to 1934. He ruled during an eventful period in the history of Belgium, which included the period of World War I, when 90% of Belgium was overrun, occupied, and ruled by the German Empire. Peter I reigned as the last king of Serbia and as the first king of the Serbs, Croats and Slovenes. Since he was the king of Serbia during a period of great Serbian military success, he was remembered by the Serbian people as King Peter the Liberator, and also as Old King. Joseph Jacques Césaire Joffre was a French general who served as commander-in-chief of French forces on the Western Front from the start of World War I until the end of 1916. Josef Haller von Hallenberg was a lieutenant general of the Polish Army, a legionary in the Polish legions, Harkmisters, the president of the Polish Scouting and Guiding Association, and a political and social activist. He was the cousin of Stanislaw Haller. Haller was born in Jurchis. Marshal of Italy Luigi Cadorna, OSML, OMS, OCI was an Italian general and Marshal of Italy, most famous for being the Chief of Staff of the Italian Army during the first part of World War I. Armando Diaz, 1st Duke of the Victory, OSA, OSML, OMS, OCI was an Italian general and a Marshal of Italy. He is mostly known for his role as Chief of Staff of the Regio Esercito during World War I from November 1917. General Erich Georg Sebastian Anton von Falkenhayn was the second chief of the German General Staff of the First World War from September 1914 until 29 August 1916. Franz Xaver Joseph Conrad von Hotzendorf, sometimes anglicized as Hotzendorf, was an Austrian general who played a central role in World War I. He served as KUK Feldmarschall and Chief of the General Staff of the military of the Austro-Hungarian Army and Navy from 1906 to 1917. Grand Duke Nicholas Nikolaevich of Russia was a Russian general in World War I. The son of Grand Duke Nicholas Nikolaevich of Russia, and a grandson of Emperor Nicholas I of Russia. Nikolai Nikolaevich Yudenich was a commander of the Russian Imperial Army during World War I. He was a leader of the anti-communist White movement in northwestern Russia during the Civil War. Graf Helmuth Johannes Ludwig von Moltke, also known as Moltke the Younger, was a German general and chief of the Great German General Staff. He was also the nephew of Generalfeldmarschall Helmuth Karl Bernhard von Moltke, who is commonly called Moltke the Elder to differentiate the two. Field Marshal John Denton Pinkstone French, 1st Earl of Ypres, KP, GCB, OM, GCVO, KCMG, ADC, PC, known as Sir John French from 1901 to 1916, and is the Viscount French between 1916 and 1922, was a senior British Army officer. Robert Georges Nivelle was a French artillery general officer who served in the Boxer Rebellion, and the First World War. Nivelle was a very capable commander and organizer of field artillery at the regimental and divisional levels. Field Marshal Radomir Putnik GOLH, KCMG was the first Serbian field marshal and chief of the General Staff of the Serbian Army in the Balkan Wars and in the First World War. He served in every war in which Serbia fought from 1876 to 1917. Air Chief Marshal Sir Keith Rodney Park, GCB, KBE, MC and BAR, DFC was a New Zealand officer. A First World War flying ace and Second World War Royal Air Force commander. Louis Archinard was a French army general at the time of the Third Republic, who contributed to the colonial conquest of French West Africa. He was traditionally presented in French histories as the conqueror and pacifier, a French Soden. Archinard's campaigns brought about the end of the two-cooler empire. Louis Archinard was a French army general at the time of the Third Republic, who contributed to the colonial conquest of French West Africa. He was traditionally presented in French histories as the conqueror and pacifier, a French Soden. Archinard's campaigns brought about the end of the two-cooler empire. Generaloberst Arthur Freiherr Ars von Strausenberg was an Austro-Hungarian colonel-general and last chief of the General Staff of the Austro-Hungarian Army. At the outbreak of the First World War, he commanded the 15th Infantry Division. Soon, he was promoted to the head of the 6th Corps and the 1st Army. Nikola Todorov Zhekov was the Minister of War of Bulgaria in 1915 and served as Commander-in-Chief from 1915 to 1918 during World War I. Konstantin Andonov Jostov was a Bulgarian general and chief of the Bulgarian Army Staff,